Hello everyone, welcome back. In this part, we're going to talk about JavaScript Array Iterations. First of all, let's say here we have simple array of numbers, and here we have numbers from 1 to 5. And here we have our variable, which we give our array to this, and then print our variable to our console. Now, if we run, we should get our array just right here. First thing that we're going to talk about, which we had a little bit talked about this, is our foreach method, which here we should give function to this. So here, for example, our function name is f1, and here we should declare our function right here. So f1 is our function's name, and as default here we should have our value, index, and then our array, of course. And here we can do whatever we want. For example, let's say we want to console log our values right here. And now if we run, you can see that we got our values one by one right here. Of course, we can do index right here too. So if we run, you can see we got our indexes. And here, if I pass my array to this, we're going to have simple print of our array right here. And if we want to use only our value, of course, we don't have these two parameters right here and only use our value right here. But pay attention that if we want to use our index or our array inside of our function code, we need to pass those ones to our function right here and pass our function to this foreach method. The next method that we're going to talk about is our map method. And here, again, it's going to give function from us right here. And here in our function, we can declare what we want. And again, this gets our value, index, and our array right here. And here, our map method is going to create a new array by performing these code and these function to each of our elements right here. And pay attention that this is not going to change our original array, and it's going to return values and array, and we're going to save them in our separate variable. And it's going to apply only on elements with values. So if we have some undefined values right here, and run our map function on this array, it's going to skip this one and continue from number 4. For example, here, let's say we want to duplicate all of our elements inside of our array. So we use our return keyword here and target our values right here and multiply them by 2. And now if we run our code, you can see we got this printing instead of our original array. And if we print our original array right here, you can see it has not changed. The next method that we're going to talk about is our filter method, which here again we're going to pass function to this. And here we need to have our comparison right here. Our filter method, it's going to compare all of these elements of our array to what comparison that we give right here and give us the values which they are passed. So here, for example, let's say we want to have our value, and when we divide it by 2, we want our mod to be 0. So this is our comparison right here, and it's going to give us only the values which pass this test, which are number 2 and number 4 right here. And here, if I select my variable right here and run my code, you can see we got only 2 values right here. Of course, if I use the opposite and negative of this and run our code again, you can see we got the other values which passes this test because of our condition. So here, let's say we want to add all of our elements to each other. So what we can do is we can use our reduce function. And here again, we have our value index, our array. But here we're going to have another total value right here, which now we're going to add, for example, all of them together. So we use our total, then add our value to that. And now if we run, you can see that this reduce function is going to return this total number to us, which here is all of our elements added together. Of course, we can have this in other math things going on, and again, it's going to return total to us. And in some cases that you want to start from right to left, you can either use your sorting methods to mirror your array, or you can use our function of reduceRight. And this is going to start from 5 and go to 1. For example, here, if we have our simple reduce and use negative right here, and let's say this is 50 instead of 5. And now if we run, you can see we got minus 58 right here, because it's going to use this 1, then minus 2 from it, 3, and then 4, and at the last 50. But here, if we use reduceRight method right here and run our function again, you can see here we got 40, which is 50 minus 4, 3, 2, and 1. Another method that we're going to talk about is our every method. And here we're going to pass 3 parameters to our function here. And we're going to have one comparison and condition right here. It's going to check if all of the values of elements of our array is going to pass this test and this condition or not. For example, let's say here we want to have our value to be positive and not negative. So we put our value greater than 0. And here, if we run, you can see we got the true value right here, because all of our items is larger than 0. But let's say we want to see if all of the values are larger than 3. So if we use 3 right here and run our code again, we got the false right here, because we have these 3 items not larger than 3. These two are smaller, and this is equal to 3. But let's say we want to check if some of the values are going to be in this condition or not. So we use our sum method right here. And now if we run, you can see we got the value of true, because this is not doing anything with the values that are not past this test. It's going to give us if some values pass this or not, which here we got 2 values passes this test. And if we have this 30, because we have 1 value passes the test, again, we're going to have our true value. But let's say this is 300, and now if we run, we got the false value, because none of our items value is larger than 300. Another thing that we're going to talk about is our for method. For example, let's say here we have one variable of a, which here we have a string of our characters. And here, if we use our array right here, and then use our for method here, and give our variable and our string to this, you can see here, if we run, it's going to make each character of this string to an array and return that to our variable. If we print our variable, you can see that we got this string changed to this kind of array. And we can do any other functions on this array. And pay attention, if we have numbers as strings right here instead of characters and run our code, it's going to give us this type of array again. But pay attention that if we don't give this in string mode and give this some 4-digit number to it and run, it's going to give us an empty array right here. So if you want to make this array, you must give this in a string. Now let's delete our variable right here and use our nums again right here. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is our keys function. which here it's not going to give any parameters, but if we save the returns of this to variable and print that right here, you can see here we're going to have an object. And if we want to print this, we can use our for loop that we're going to learn in later parts. And now if I run, you can see that here we got an object which contains the indexes and keys for our array. And pay attention that in objects we have named keys and in arrays we have numbered keys. So this is going to return index of our items to us. Another function that we can use here is our entries function. And you can see if I run this right here, again, it's going to be some object. And inside of object, we have arrays, which the first item inside of our array is our index, and the second item is our value. As you see, our index 0 is 1, our index 1 is 2, our index 2 is 3, index 3 is 4, and our index 4 is value 50 right here. And this is simply listing our items with their keys beside that. Another thing that we're going to talk about is our with method. And here, if I use my with method, here we need to give two values. So the first one is index that we want. For example, here we want index 1, which is this number 2 right here. And after this, we can pass value that is going to replace with our index 1. We have another methods that do the same thing, but this is another safe way to update our elements inside of our array, which is not going to change our original array in this one. So if we want to have this right here too, and another version of this with changed value in another variable and array, we can use that index. And let's say here we have our text that we want to replace with this number 2 right here. So if we run here, you can see here if we print this X is going to give us this array. But if we print our nums here, you can see that we got our original array not changed and in its original shape. The next thing that we're going to talk about is our spread. And what this is basically going to copy our array to where we use that. For example, here, if we want to copy our nums to our x variable, we can use 3 dots here as our spread and then our array's name. And we're going to wrap this inside our array. And now if I run, you can see that we have the copy of that right here. But you might say, why we do this? We simply put our nums right here, and now if we run, again, we're going to have this result. But if we have changed one of our elements inside of our first array, let's say we want to change our index number 2 to value of 0, and run our code again, you can see we got number 3 replaced with 0 in both of these. But if we use our spread right here, just like this, and run our code again, you can see here we got changed our value in this nums array, but we're not changing anything inside of x. And pay attention that if you use this command and this line before this one and run, it's going to change too. But if we copy this to our variable first and change our item after that, it's not going to change in our x array. And of course, let's say we have another bunch of arrays right here. And let's say here we have some words and then some numbers after that. Here we can use our array right here, and then we can separate this and add another array to this. So it's going to concat them together and put them in this array. So here again, we can use our spread right here and then have our array 1, for example, here. And then let's say we have our second array and at the last our third array right here. And now if I console log only our x, you can see that here we got our arrays right here, each one after each other. This is our nums array, which is here. This array 1 is going to be from here to here. This is our AR2, and this is going to be our AR3. And this copying of our array is very, very useful and important inside of our codes. Please give a like and subscribe to catch next videos.